Hi folks, this is Karim Rao for IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Matrix Labs, the video number 80. We have been discussing in the previous video the following, while still working with the GPO ZOR report concerning the scanning and archiving and troubleshooting Active Directory. So this is a report that not only discover problems concerning your group policies and try to solve them, but it's also a report to inventory or to archive your group policies, their locations, their permissions, their owners, uh, uh, the content of the group policy itself. So it's a very, very useful report. And actually, it done a lot of things very, very easy with simple commands, and most of the reports are very, very useful. Today, we will discuss something called GPO permissions consistency. As we can see from the description, when GPO is created, it creates an entry in the Active Directory database and creates a folder in the sysvol folder. Okay, two different places mean two different sets of permissions. Okay, they should be matching the permissions on the group policy object in the Active Directory database should be the same permissions on the group policy folders in the sysvol folder. Okay, the group policy module is making sure this group policy module or this command, they will say the command in specific. The group policy module is making sure that the data in both places is correct. However, it's not necessarily the case of not the case for different reasons, and often permissions got out of sync between AD and sysvol. So sometimes the permissions are not the same or out of sync. This test verifies the consistency of policies between AD and sysvol in two ways. It checks top level permissions for a GPO and then checks if all files within said GPO is inheriting permissions or have different permissions in place. So in the Active Directory, this is simple. The module will check the permissions on the group policy object, and it try to see if there is a parent or this GPO object is in a parent folder, so it's inheriting permissions from this folder. So it will see the consistency between the parent permissions and the child, or if he is inheriting these permissions. And the same on the sysvol folder. If the GPO is in a parent folder, which is the sysvol folder, it will see if it will inherit these permissions. Okay, so this is a very, very good thing to do to make sure that that permissions are inherited from the parents. Okay, uh, I think this also will help in applying the group policy and to see maybe there is some differences between the parent permissions and the child permissions. Anyway, we will see that here he have already checked my permissions, the top level, so all of them are correct. The inherited are correct. So the permissions are inherited from the parents safely. They are inherited and there is no issues between my. This is for the two, for the Active Directory and for the sysvol folder. There is no problems concerning these permissions. If you go to the report and see, we'll see a very, very detailed report. Here is the group policy name. Here is the domain. Here is the ACL consistency. So here, this is uh, these two saying that I have already consistent permissions on group policies in both Active Directory database and the sysvol folder. This is the owner of the group policy. We have discussed the ownership before. Then we have the owner is domain admins. This is the path of the object in the Active Directory database. And this is the sysvol or the group policy location in the sysvol folder. We can see that these two GUIDs match. Okay, this is the ID of the GPO or the GUID for the GPO. And you can see here that the GPO status, the computer setting is disabled, which means that it is a group policy focusing on the user configuration. Okay, we can see the creation date and modification date. So we can see very, very good thing. I will have error if there is error, I think, in the implementation of the group policy. We can see very, very good report. If we see all of them are true, then we don't have any thing wrong with the permissions on both the Active Directory database or the group policy in the Active Directory database and the group policy in the sysvol folder. If there is anything, we can go to the fix steps. First, we need to install the GPOzor module, then import the module, then we can prepare the report to execute or export this report and see the data. Okay, and as we can see here, this is report is called GPO consistency, and this is the command to get the consistency between the Active Directory and sysvol folder for group policy objects. Okay, and this, if you need to do it without the GPOzor commandlets, you need to have a lot of commands to do so, at least 2 commands. Okay, and you need to verify them manually by checking them manually in the Active Directory database and the sysvol folder. So this command will help you a lot. Fix inconsistent permissions. If you go to the third step, here we go, repair GPO permissions consistently, include the domain. If you have a forest, if you can choose the domain you want to apply this to, or you can do it to all of the forest. Okay, include domains, target domain, verbose, what if. We know what if, the function of what if, to test the commandlet before implementation or real implementation, and limit processing the same, but it will fix the first 2 inconsistent permissions and then it will stop. Okay, we can see it is very, very simple command. If we go to the next one, this is fixed inconsistent permission. I think this is in the parent object, okay, or the parent OU. If you go to this fix inconsistent down level permissions, this unfortunately step is manual until automation. It's not, you should do it manually until automation is developed. If there is inconsistent permission found inside the GPO, one has to fix them manually by going into the sysvol folder. So if the permissions on the child GPO under the parent sysvol folder are not inheriting permissions from the sysvol folder, you need to go to the child and add these permissions manually. Okay, and make sure inheritance is enabled and that permissions are consistent across all the files. Please keep in mind that it is possible inconsistent level provisions fix will not be required once the top level fix is applied. Inconsistent level provisions will not be required once the top level is applied. So if you apply the top level, maybe you don't need to do this for the down level, but return to the report and find out if you have fixed top level permission. So the previous step, if you do it correctly, you will not be you don't need to do the next step. If we go and try to give you a little bit of illustration about this, if I go to the matrix final lab and we get to the group policies, here is the backups. Pretend this to be the sysvol folder. We have in it the child folders, which is the group policies. We need to make sure that the parent permissions of the sysvol folder is inherited to the child GPO folder. Go to the properties and see the security. We need to see if these permissions are inherited from the parent. If it is not, we need to add them. Okay, so this is one thing to say, because if it didn't inherit from the sysvol folders, then there may be some problems for applying this group policy. Anyway, so this is after fixing both, you will go to the verification report and or run the report again. You will see if you have all of them are true, then everything is working perfectly. Okay, so this is the group policy permissions consistency and the GPOzor commandlets used to fix something like that. If you go to Claude and try to see the explanation of Claude concerning this topic, explain this topic. Here first, before doing anything, I have already feed him up with the GPOzor commandlets. I have got it from the GitHub website or GitHub section, and then I have feed him up with the commandlets and then ask him to explain this topic, which is this topic. It is the text that is I have already read before. I have take this text and tell him to explain it. Okay, like explain this topic based on the content of the text to make sure he uses GPOs or commandlets to explain this topic. Like I'm a junior IT administrator learning Active Directory, show how this concept works in Active Directory, provide a real-world scenario, and include common pitfalls to avoid. So let's see how he will explain that. Let me break this down in a simple, practical way for you as a junior IT administrator. Basic concept. Think of a group policy object like a recipe book with two essential parts. The recipe index. Okay, this is where Active Directory stores the metadata about the GPO. The actual recipe. This is where actual setting and files GPO live. Okay, real world scenario. Let's say you create a GPO called secure desktop setting that locks the desktop background, disables USB drivers, set up a standard screensaver. When you create the GPO, AD creates an entry saying here is a GPO called secure desktop setting. Sysvol folder stores all the actual setting files that make these restrictions work. Okay? The permission problem. Imagine you have two security guards for a building, but they have different lists of who can enter. Guard 1, Active Directory says Bob can modify the building rules. Guard 2 saying or Sysvol saying Bob cannot modify the building rules. Two different types of permissions. This creates a conflict where Bob might not be able to open the GPO in the group policy editor because the AD says it's okay, can able to open it in the group policy management console, but because it's okay, but the changes wouldn't apply because Sysvol folder wouldn't let Bob modify the files. So you can open it from the group policy management console, but if you try to edit it, which will reflect the physical files in the Sysvol folder, you will not be able to do that because the permissions are not the same. Common real-world issues, manual permission changes, bad practice. Directly modify permissions in Sysvol folder, use File Explorer to change permissions. So this is not a good thing. You need to modify permissions from the group policy management console, okay? And it will be reflected in the Sysvol folder. So I think adding permissions through or manually is not a good way. Using File Explorer to change permission, this is not the correct way. Copying GPOs between domains. What can go wrong? The AD permissions copy directly, but Sysvol permissions don't match. Result GPO appears fine but does not work properly. So also do not copy GPOs from Sysvol folder to another Sysvol folder. Okay, make sure all of this is done through the group policy management console. It is created in the group policy management console and then created in the Sysvol folder, and then the replication is done so it will copy them to the other domain controllers. Okay, we go to failed GPO creation scenario. Network hiccup during GPO creation, AD enters successfully, Sysvol doesn't sync properly, result mismatch permission. So this is also one thing. GPO is created in the Active Directory, but and created in Sysvol folder, but the replication is not correct for the Sysvol folder, so some domain controllers have them in the group policy management console and not in the Sysvol folder, so it will not be applied and will be also mismatch permission, or it can be synced but not fully, so not all of the permissions are synced successfully. So this is one thing. Best practice to avoid problems: always use proper group policy management console tools. Group policy management console, you can use this to create group policies. PowerShell commandlets like those in GPOzor. You can use this one to fix GPO permissions consistency in a useful way or in a safe way. Example using GPO, this to get the inconsistent group policies, okay, to compare between the AD and the Sysvol, and then to repair. Okay, what if to actually make changes? Remove what if you actually want to make the changes. Okay, so verify after changes. Check both AD and Sysvol permission. Test the GPO application on target computers. Document any manual changes. Think of it like this: if an AD and Sysvol permission don't match, it's like having a car with two keys, but one key only can open the door while the other can only start the engine. Neither one alone will let you drive the car properly. Okay, warning signs to watch for. GPO that appears to be configured correctly but do not apply. Error messages about access denied in group policy events. This is one that refers to permissions. Inconsistent GPO behavior across different computers, maybe replication. Inconsistent different computers here. I think maybe to the network or something, or replication with different domain controllers. Okay, the group policy is not replicated correctly, and some computers are getting the group policy from one domain controller and some get it from another domain controller. Okay, so there is differences between group policy implementation. Users report that some policies work, sometimes not others. So this is a replication issue. Understanding this concept and following proper procedures, you can avoid many common group policy problems that often bother junior administrators. Remember that the key is always to ensure both AD and SysVol permissions are in sync and to use proper tools for group policy management rather than manual modification. Okay, so this is a good thing. Here I asked him to provide me with a set of hands-on exercise to teach that topic based on the content of the text file, again to make him or force him to use group GPOs or commandlets to solve this issue. Related to Active Directory, exercises should target an audience of IT junior administrators with a beginner understanding of Active Directory. And here is the exercise should include a couple of things. And let's see here the training lab or the training or exercises created by the Claude AI. Here, required environment, this is the lab, Windows Server 2016 domain controller, administrative access to domain, GPO PowerShell module installed, test organization units and users created, backup of your GPO environment before starting, basic GPO permissions, learn how to identify and audit GPO permissions across both AD and SysVol folder. Scenario: you have joined an organization as a new IT administrator and you need to audit the existing GPO permissions to ensure their consistency. So the first thing you need to do, open PowerShell as an administrator, make sure you have installed GPOs or commandlets, run the basic GPO permission consistency check. This is through the GPO ZOR permissions, GPO door permissions consistency, this command, and then you can export it to CSV file. Okay, this is good. And make sure that there is no problem. A list of GPOs showing whether the permissions are consistent between AD and SysVol folder. Verification check if any GPOs are marked as inconsistent. Review the CSV file for detailed information. Document any inconsistencies found. If you see maybe the report like this one, make sure they are consistent. Let me see how we can get the reports here. You can get the report in a HTML file in this form by using this commandlet, or you can get it in a CSV file, so you can get it in two formats. Anyway, so let's go and see the next exercise. Creating a test GPO with proper permissions. Learn how to proper way to create and verify GPO permissions. Scenario: you need to create a GPO for desktop setting while ensuring proper permissions consistency. Create a new GPO using Group Policy Management Console. Verify the initial permissions. There is another command called GPO ZOR permissions. It will check. I think here is making sure that this group policy has GPO edit included. So see if you have edit permissions on this GPO. Okay, we can see get GPO permissions, and here to get the consistency concerning this GPO only, not all of the group policies. Okay, so you have edit permissions to make sure you have it already, and you have consistency. Expected outcome: a newly created GPO with matching permissions in both AD and SysVol. So okay, this is good. Confirm authenticated users have read permissions. Make sure that the newly created GPO we have authenticated users have read, so it will be the group policy can be applied to the users. Verify domain admins have edit permissions and they are the owners. Check both AD and SysVol folder permission match. We have already this command to do so. Okay, fixing inconsistent permissions. Learn how to define and mix mismatch permissions between AD and SysVol. Scenario: would discover a GPO with inconsistent permissions that need to be fixed. How this is done? First of all, get GPO ZOR consistency, type inconsistence, get GPO ZOR GPO name, include GPO object. This is the permissions of the GPO. Okay, this is, I think, the permissions in the Active Directory database, maybe. And this for the two. Let's see here, repair GPO ZOR permission consistency, which what if. So this is good. Let me see what is GPO ZOR permissions. If you go to the GPO ZOR, and let's see the commandlet itself, get GPO ZOR permissions, and see it what it will do exactly. Here you go, here you go, this is it. So this will get the permissions on the group policy. This is it, and these are the commandlets anyway. So let's continue and see sync permissions between AD and sysvol folder, rerun consistency check, verify permissions in both locations, test GPO application on a test computer, managing GPO owners, learn to audit and manage GPO owners properly. Several GPOs have incorrect owners but need to be standardized to domain admins. This is we have discussed in the previous video. GPO or get GPO ZOR owner includes sysvol. Okay, this is to make sure the owners on the sysvol folder, okay, are the same, or get the owners of the group policy on the sysvol folder. And to get unknown, we have seen this in the previous video, to get unknown owners if they are added to the both group policy management console and sysvol folder owners. Get GPOs or all if you need to get them all. Okay, so if you need to get the owners on the group policy in the Active Directory database and in the sysvol folder, you type this one. Okay, so that's good. All GPOs should have proper administrative ownership. Verify new ownership. Check both AD and sysvol ownership. Document changes made. Troubleshooting permissions. Learn to diagnose and resolve common GPO permission problems. Use the report. We have seen this report to see this. There is something here we can see. Verify. This is permissions. Maybe authenticated users are not added to the group policy management console and the sysvol folders. He is adding them. Then this is repair type authenticated users. So here, if there is some missing permissions, okay, for example, on the sysvol folder and the Active Directory database, especially authenticated users, this is the way to add the permissions. But I think we can use repair GPOs or permissions. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, repair GPOs or permission. Okay, so this is it. User issue. I think this is the commandlet. Let me get back to it. If we go to GPOs or consistency. Okay, and I think here it's talking about this is permissions. I have two things: the permissions or the consistency. So we have two things not to get confused. These are the permissions. Okay, and the other is for the consistency. I think we can use the consistency just to fix both in one thing. Properly configure permissions allow GPO application. Test GPO application, check event logs for errors, verify user reports of solution, security audit and documentation, how to create comprehensive GPO permission documentation and security reports. We need to provide management with security audit of GPO permissions. Get GPO ZOR permission analysis to get a report concerning the permissions on the group policy. So we will discuss this later in another tab here, which is GPO ZOR permission analysis or group policy permission analysis. This will get all of the permissions on the group policy. Okay. Let's go and see again the answer. Document findings and recommendation, comprehensive security documentation, GPO permissions, review HTML report, verify all GPOs are included, check for security concerns. Bonus mass permission redemption, remediation, fix permissions across the multiple GPOs while maintaining security best practice. After an audit, you need to fix permissions on 50 plus GPOs while ensuring no disruption. Backup the group policies before doing anything. Generate the reports. Fix permissions in batches. This is exercise for you. Verify changes. Document process and results. Best practice throughout exercise. Always use what if first. Create backups before changes. Document all changes. Test in a small batches, not to apply all in one command. Verify changes after implementation. Monitor event logs for issues. Security consideration. Maintain least privilege. Document all changes. Keep audit logs. Follow change management test before production. These exercises should be performed in a test environment first. Always have backups and proper change management procedures in place before making changes in production. So this is a very, very good exercise, and we will go to the next step to also explain this topic, but through a conversation between a junior IT and a senior IT. Here we are trying to explain the topic, but through a conversation just to make it more dynamic. If you go and see here, I will start by simulating an instructor-student conversation focusing on GPO permissions and consistency between AD and Sysvol based on the text file content, which I have already done. This is the text file content. Senior IT, let's start with a fundamental concept about GPOs or objects. Can you explain to me how GPO permissions are stored in Active Directory and why we need to pay attention to both AD and Sysvol permissions? Junior IT, well, from what I understand, we can create a GPO. It's a kind of split into two parts. One part goes in the Active Directory. I think that's like the setting and configuration, and the other parts go to Sysvol folder, which is the actual files that are stored. Correct? Both places have their own permissions, but I am not entirely sure why we need both or what happens if they don't mismatch. They don't match. Senior IT, good start. Let me help you visualize this better. Imagine you are running a restaurant. Active Directory is like your recipe book index containing metadata about each recipe. This was said before. Sysvol folder is like your actual kitchen where the recipes are executed. If the permissions don't match, you would be like the index saying Chef Bob can modify recipes, AD permissions, but the kitchen door is closed, so Chef Bob cannot actually cook. This is the Sysvol permissions. Can you think of a real-world problem this might cause? Okay, I think I will get it. So if we have a situation where an IT admin have permissions in Active Directory to modify a GPO, but doesn't have the right permissions Sysvol folder, this might think they are making changes, but the changes wouldn't actually work. Like they could open the group policy management console and make changes, but the changes wouldn't apply to users. Exactly. Let's verify our understanding of the practical scenario. You receive a help desk ticket. Users in the sales department report that their desktop wallpaper GPO isn't applying, but the marketing department's identical GPO works fine. What would you check first? Let's see here. Based on what we have just discussed, I think I would first check GPO permissions are consistent between AD and Sysvol. I would probably use the GPOzor commandlet, get GPOzor permission consistency. Look specifically at the sales department GPO permissions in both places. Compare it with the working marketing GPO permissions to see what's the difference. But I'm not entirely sure about the exact steps or commands I need to run. Would that be the right approach? Good thinking. Let's work through this methodologically and see how we can investigate that. So we will get the permission consistency for both GPOs, and we'll go to the permissions one by one. So this is, I think, permissions on both AD and Sysvol. I think this is for the AD only, okay? Or I think also maybe for the two, but we will see, or you can run it and see, okay? Can you tell me specific permissions we should look for in both? So what permissions we should see here? Authenticated user should have read. So this is a very, very critical thing. If this permission is not available on the group policy object in the Active Directory database and in the Sysvol folder, read and GPO apply. If these are not present in both Active Directory and Sysvol folder, the GPO will not be applied. The IT team has edit permissions, but I'm not sure what else might be important. Are there other crucial permissions we should check? Let's see the answer of the senior. Good basic understand. Let me expand out that I am properly in a proper configured GPO we need. These are the basic permissions. Authenticated user have read, apply permissions. Domain controllers read permission, correct, but one of these should be available. If this is available, we don't need this one. Okay, this is one thing I have tried it in a production environment. This is not needed if you have authenticated users read and apply permissions. Okay, domain computers full, domain admins full control. Okay, this is correct. Sysvol folder, yes, or system full control, correct. We have also enterprise admins. These permissions must match in both AD and Sysvol, correct. Okay, let's fix this issue. First, we will back up the sales group policy. Then we will repair by using GPO permission consistency. Okay, correct. Can you explain why we back up the GPO first and what the minus what if parameter does? Would you like to continue? Okay, here we go to the senior or the junior. I think we have back up the GPO first because it's like insurance. If something goes wrong during the permission fix, we can restore it back. And what if parameter, I have seen that before in PowerShell. It shows what would happen without actually making the change, kind of like a preview. But I am not entirely sure about the proper backup process or what we should verify after making these changes. So let's see the senior answer. We need to back up the GPO using also GPO ZOR commandlet. Okay, this creates a dated folder structure, make it easier to track changes. Backup dated, I think this will be okay. The folder will be named according to the date. Let's see, because we can go to backup here and see this parameter. You have backup. Where is the backup GPO? Can go A. I think I have already backup GPO ZOR. Here it is. And if we go there, we can see something called backup updated. Let's see what this can do. Let's go to example where it is. Extended backup path, backup dated. While the command should create dated folders for executed backup or not. Keep in mind, it's not necessary and two backups made to same folder have their dates properly tagged. So we will create the folder and it will be tagged or it will be named according to the date. This is a good commandlet, by the way. Okay, so if we go there and continue, let's continue. Think of it like taking a snapshot of your work before making changes to a critical system. Let me ask you this. After we fix the permissions and remove the what if parameter, what step you'd like to verify the changes were successful? Okay, we need to do that. So we run the report again. Consistently check command again to make sure the permissions match now. Maybe check if the wallpaper is applying to sales users, but I feel like there should be more verification steps. Let's see what we can do further. First, we will run again the commandlet to get the permissions. Then we can see the permissions in details again on the group policy. Then we can force a group policy update by using this command on a test computer. Check GP results are on this computer. Review event view for group policy events, correct. Document changes, what was changed, when it was changed, backup location, verification results. There is a real world best practice. Create a user, test user in Sales OU and test the GPO there before test the GPO there first before checking with real users. Okay, why do you think this is important? Let's continue. Great. Before we dive into testing practices, can you describe what you think a good change management process would look for a GPO permission change? We need to document or make a process or a procedure to change GPOs. Okay, we need to have some steps or some documentation to do that or some procedures to do that. Let me think. I guess we should tell users before making changes. Do it after hours, maybe, or after working hours. Have the backup we talked about, but I'm not sure what else we need to consider or how to structure it properly. So we can see here the conversation is not only fixing the issue, but to document the issue, to see practical sides of doing this, how this can be done in a production environment by two ITs or two IT members talking. One is junior and one is senior, and or the other is senior. Let's see what will be the answer. Good initial thoughts. Let's deep a proper change management process for GPO modification. Pre-change phase. Document. So before doing that, we need to get all of the permissions in both Active Directory and Sysvol folder and export them. Okay, and then back up the group policies. Okay, so this is a pre-change phase. Testing phase, we can, before changing the group policy, or before maybe creating a group policy and applying it, we should make it in a test environment, maybe. So here we're creating object test sales. So this one I'm talking about, test sales, and we have a user called test sales users, and then we will create move test user to test OU. So we will create the user and move it to the OU that we have already done. Okay, correct. Implementation schedule, change window after 6 p.m., rollback window 2 hours, correct. This is very, very good example. On practical side, on the real world scenarios, 6 p.m. after working hours, rollback window 2 hours, verification window 1 hour, emergency contact senior admin on call. Okay. The permissions fix works in testing, but during implementation, users report they cannot access certain network resources. So he has done this already, checking the permissions. So he have already a sales GPO. He export the permissions for this and back it up and test it. But during the test it was working, but in the production it was not working. What could be the cause? Is testing, but during implementation users report that they cannot access certain network resources. What step you would take? Use backup to restore the GPO to its previous state, maybe, but I'm not sure how to quickly identify what went wrong or what to check first. So first, before restoring the GPO, we need to know what happened first. First, here is checking the GPO or link. If the GPO is linked to the correct OU, so to be applied, okay, and then get GPOs or updates. This is a command to see the recent changes done to all of the group policies, okay, just to make sure if maybe someone have changed this group policy, okay. Emergency rollback, then you can restore. So before restoring, we need to make sure the group policy is applied correctly, and make sure it is linked to the correct OU, and if there is someone have done any changes. If they are correct or we don't have anything here, then we can restore the backup. Okay, so this is it. Root cause, compare permissions before and after. So after restoring, you need to compare the permissions. So before restoring, you will have the permissions already backed up, and after restoring you need to see the permissions back. Compare permissions before and after. Check inheritance setting. We have seen this. If the inheritance from the parent and from the child folder are not the same, or it didn't inherit from the parent folder, then we have a problem. Review security filtering. Okay, well, this is also one thing. Maybe you are making some security filtering on the GPO. What questions do you have about this process, and what additional safety checks would you need to prevent similar issues in the future? So as we can see here, the discussion continues, and more and more things begins to be revealed. Let's deep into troubleshooting and prevention. When making GPO permission changes, what monitoring tools or commands you would use to track the changes in real time, and how you would document this for future reference? Okay, for monitoring, I think we could use Event Viewer to see GPO changes. You can use commandlets like get GPO ZOR updates to get the changes done to GPO. But I'm not sure about specific events to watch or how to set up proper monitoring. And for documentation, we just write down what we did in a text file. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here, event viewer to see GPO changes. Maybe those GPO command lists we used earlier, but I'm not sure uh, the specific events to watch or how to set up proper monitoring. And for documentation, should we just write down what we did in a text file? Good, let's start. Here, uh, this script I think will be done or it will be attached to a schedule task. Here, get GPO ZOR or object status is okay. Get GPO ZOR. Check GPO processing status if it is enabled or not. I think if you go to get GPO ZOR, get information about all group policies similar to get GPO provided by default. Okay, so this is a good thing. Check replication. Okay, this is good to make sure that group policies are replicated uh, in the Active Directory database, or the Active Directory database is replicated to all of the domain controllers. But I think we need to add also the replication of the sysvol folder. Set up ongoing permissions monitoring to check the permissions consistency. Okay, and put it in a CSV file by the date. So this is correct thing. And documentation template, GPO change record date, so we get it from the data previously listed. GPO name, change type, permission modification, affected OUs, OU list, pre-change backup location, changes made, specific permissions, verification steps, permission consistency check, test user validation, production user validation, rollback plan. So this is a good documentation template. Okay, you can if you need to change a group policy, you need to fill it up. Okay, what is the intended changes? What are the affected OUs? The backup location. If you have done all of the verification steps, permission, consistency check, test users validation, and all of this. So this is a good thing. Let's practice with a scenario. You notice the GPO permission change you made last week caused an inheritance issue in child OU. What you would do? Investigate the impact, fix the issue, prevent it from happening again. For investigating, I guess what I should do, check OUs that are affected, look in the inheritance setting, but I am not clear how to fix properly inherited issues or what preventive measures to put in place. Okay, let's see a perfect learning opportunity. Let's walk through a systematic approach. Get GPO inheritance. Okay. Review affected OUs. Get GPO ZOR link verbose. So GPO inheritance, it will get you the inherited uh, or what is inherited from OUs. Okay, and then review affected group policy. Get GPO ZOR link to get the linked group policy to the affected OU and see the inheritance. So these are both for inheritance issues, preventive measures, a regular auditing schedule, weekly audit, report permission consistency, get GPO inheritance, broken GPOs, we have done this before, and all of this will be in a JSON file. So as we can see here, these are the investigation for inheritance issue, and this is how we can solve it. Create a weekly audit report to check for inheritance and permissions consistency and broken GPOs. All of this should be this report should be done in a scheduled task. Okay, here is the script, example monitoring script, and here we can see that uh, this is to send an email. Just a moment. To send an email with the GPO door permission consistency, but I think we have one command missing, which is the SNTP to send an email. Okay. Okay, and uh, here the 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 talking continues. Excellent. Let's set up a complete monitoring prevention system. First, can you tell me what are the critical aspects of GPO permissions you should monitor regularly and why? So, here is continuing with the how to document and make monitoring procedures. Okay, so this thing goes, but I'm just exploring it to make sure, guys, you have or to see how this conversation will go. So we will stop here and continue later. So let's continue, guys, the dialogue between the junior IT and the senior IT. We can, from the dialogue here, see that we are getting more experienced with the topic we are talking about today, which is GPO permission consistency between the Active Directory group policy object permissions and the group policy sysvol file permissions. Okay, so we can see here senior IT. Excellent. Let's set up complete monitoring and prevention system. First, can you tell me what critical aspect of GPO permissions we should monitor regularly and why? From what I have learned, I think we should monitor permissions mismatch between AD and sysvol, maybe changes to GPO owners, whether GPO have the right permission for authenticated user, but I'm not sure how to automate this or what other critical things we might be missing. Senior IT. Okay, good foundation. Let's build a comprehensive monitoring solution. Here is the function test GPO health. There is a couple of reports that will be generated. Permissions, permission issue. This is if there is any missing missing groups that should have access to the GPO, for example, authenticated users, domain admins, system, GPOs or permissions consistency, broken GPOs, if there is group policies that are present in the Active Directory database and not in the sysvol folder, and the opposite, and the GPO owners unknown if there is unknown groups that are having the ownership of certain group policies. And GPO broken, here we can see this is the broken link. So there is two. The broken, this is if the GPO exists in sysvol folder and not in the Active Directory database, and the opposite. And this is the broken link if the group policy is deleted and the link still persists. So all of these will run through a report, and this report will be converted to a JSON file and will be saved to what location. We need to make sure where the location output file report path. Okay, where is the report path? No, this is not the report path. So we can see, I think after that, this is the out file report path. Okay, I think there is something still missing. We have another function, repair GPO health. So automate fixes with safety checks. So here I think you have two, the reports. Okay, here there's something. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here is the create monitoring report. We see that this is to test a couple of issues concerning the group policies, the permissions, the consistency, the broken links, the owners, the broken group policies between the Active Directory and the sysvol folder. But here I think I didn't see the report path. Where is the output file? Here, this parameter is not listed, but let's continue with the report here. Set up automated redemption. Here you can see this is another function. Repair GPO issues, parameter switch what if it is needed, backup before changes. Here is the backup path, and repair the issues here. Repair permissions, authenticated users added, repair consistency, permissions consistency, GPO owner unknown. So this is all good things. Here is a scenario: you arrive at work and find these monitoring alerts. How would you prioritize and address them? 3 GPOs have inconsistent permissions. 1 GPO has no owner. 2 GPOs has broken links. 1 GPO is missing using authenticated user permissions. What would be your action plan? I think fixing the missing authenticated user permission first, since this might affect users right now. Correct. This is the urgent one. Then handle the inconsistent permissions, okay, concerning the Active Directory and sysvol folder GPO permissions between the two. Fix the ownership, clean up the broken links. Okay, I'm not sure if this is the right order uh, or how to handle them effectively or efficiently. Good thinking about impact. Let's create a structured plan. A quick analysis. I think he's repeating himself somehow. Uh, so he's making a script to check the authenticated users, the inconsistency, the broken links, the affected users and computers concerning the linked or the broken links. Okay, so wanted to practice running through this scenario in a test environment. So as we can see here, this is the answer is very long one, and I think it reveals a lot of things concerning the topic that we are talking about. So this is a good prompt. I think if we need to have a detailed answer and to get uh, uh, a very good explanation about the topic, I think this could be the ideal prompt to have it to explain uh, any topic by doing a conversation or a dialogue. Okay, so this is a good thing. So I think this is good for our video today. So we will continue the upcoming video to discuss the next topic, which is duplicate CNF group policies. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.